It's been 9 months since I got my Insta360 GO 3, so here's my long-term review covering everything that I love, like, and think needs a bit of improvement in this tiny little camera for the next edition, the GO 4, whenever that comes out. First things first, what I love about this camera is its amazing small and clean design. Don't underestimate how important ease of use is for any camera that you choose. And here the menus are super responsive, it's easy to select your options or even choose and create your own preset so that you're ready to start shooting immediately. And it's really simple to set up once you get the hang of it. Second, I love the great video quality that's available at 2.7K 30 frames per second. If you're sitting there wondering whether it's good enough compared to 4K, just watch some of my vlogs and you can decide for yourself. I really think 2.7K hits a sweet spot between saving space on your device or your SD card. This one doesn't have an SD card, it's got a built-in memory, but we'll come back to that. And quality. I really think that the quality is good enough for most people at 2.7K. I wish that there was a 50 or 60 frames per second option at 2.7K. That would make it absolutely perfect to slow down your footage, and it doesn't force me then to use free frame mode. And I really prefer 2.7K because horizon stabilization really isn't that much of an issue for me with how I shoot. Next up, I want to talk about the next level fantastic stabilization that you get with this camera. Now you can choose different settings and levels of stabilization, but low or medium is really what I go with here, and it does a great job. I never really have to do anything else. The stabilization is so sweet, so sick, it's just next level. The next thing I want to talk about is the surprisingly good audio quality that the two built-in mics have. Just such a lovely way. And this is the great thing about running, okay? It's a fantastic way to meet people when you're traveling, particularly locals. Now, of course, when it's windy out there, even the wind reduction mic algorithm isn't really going to help you that much. It helps a bit, but not too much. What I really like is the directional mic, where it tries to pick up your voice and where you are situationally with the camera. So you might be behind the camera or you might be in front of it, and it will try to use the mics in a way to optimize your voice. I really have been surprised with how good the mic quality has been, and also you have too from the comments that you can see on some of the videos that I've uploaded from my Japan vlogs recently. I'll come on to a bit more about mics when we talk about some downsides which need improvement. Okay, next is really about practicality. I love being able to offload the 2.7K footage off my GO 3 with no further processing straight to my iPad editor via a cable. That to me is priceless. It really speeds up my workflow. And I'll talk again about the dark side of trying to get footage off your GO 3 and where it needs improvement when I come onto my cons, so stay tuned. Next up, I love the ability to add data overlays using my Apple Watch health data. It's really simple and easy to set up, and you can see from, again, some of my vlogs and some of my tutorials exactly how to do that. I think it's a great addition and love being able to slap that data on the screen. You can use it for your walks, your runs, your bike rides, whatever. You can sync up that accelerometer and your own personal health data really easily and export it in 2.7K if you filmed in 2.7K. Now, one thing that goes together with its small, clean design and its ease of use is all the additional accessories that you get when you buy the GO 3 at no extra cost. And that makes it, I think, the perfect package for no fuss travel vlogs. Now, you can buy extra accessories to enhance and add to the angles and the shots that you might get, and I've got a video all about that in the video description. But even with what you get in the package just as it comes, makes it a super versatile little camera which you can use in so many different ways. Next up, let's talk about great battery life, especially I think for the camera unit, using that and the action pod to top up charge and use the maximum length that you can get. I think it's a really efficient and convenient setup. See again one of my recent videos where I filmed in 2.7K in the cold a whole 5K run well over 30 minutes, and the camera unit handled it really well, just handled it in cold conditions. Okay, let's go back to design again for a second. Let's talk about the flip screen for the action, because I think this is just next level fantastic for vlogging. It's big enough, really is big enough for you to just frame yourself. And that's what you're trying to do here, getting the entire frame and not just a tiny frame for you to see what you look like just before you hit that record button. But it's also superb as a preview screen, and I kind of underestimated how useful this would be. It's been incredibly helpful when perhaps I've put the camera in one place and I've been somewhere else and found the range to be good enough for my needs in remotely controlling the separately mounted camera unit. Not only can you preview, but you can also trigger and stop recording. The waterproofing on the little camera unit allows for all weather shooting, which I used a lot when I was in Japan when it was raining quite a bit. So I could put the camera unit in one place where it may be raining and then use the action pod under my umbrella in order for me to trigger it. Because you do need to take care of the action pod, as it's not waterproof. It has some openings like the USB power cable slot, so be cautious with the whole Go 3 system. And finally, I must say I love the new version of the Go 3. I've used the black version non-stop since it came out. I take the white version out with me as well, but if I can get away with it, I prefer the black one. It's super stealthy, slick, and I like the matte feel of it too. Now let's talk about cons of the Go 3, the things I'm not so keen on. You really need to stay on top of your memory management. There's no way to add more memory, so choose your camera version carefully. Personally, I try to offload at the end of the day if I'm vlogging, so I can clear some space on the internal drive for the Go 3. Now this also applies to the battery. There's no way to add external batteries. Instead, think about plugging the action pod into an external battery when it's not in use to keep it topped up. However, this is kind of inherent and built into all the Go series cameras designs so far. You do have to pick and choose carefully in terms of memory, and remember the limited battery capacity, so ensure you've got a backup plan. If you want expandability for memory and battery, then the Ace and Ace Pro are really your options. My second con is I wish it could connect to external mics, either through a USB connection or at the very least via Bluetooth for AirPods or other Bluetooth mics, including helmet mics for motorcycles. I think Bluetooth audio expandability and connection is the least we can expect, and that's a bit of a miss from Insta360. The next con is something I've mentioned in many videos for the Go 2 and the Go 3 when it came out. And despite that, 9 months later, I still miss the interval video mode where you could set an interval and then it would just record off your hat clip or wherever it is for 1 minute and then switch itself off. And then 5 minutes later, you can get it recording for 1 minute again without you doing anything. It's a really nice way of getting little social media clips of just little excerpts of your day, and then you can put it through the auto edit algorithm and come up with just little happy little videos for your social media. I really miss not having that capability. I just don't understand why it's not there anymore. Okay, the fourth quibble that I have is that it's still a really clunky way of connecting your phone to the Go 3 to process your footage. If you're using something like FreeFrame in order to film and then export, it's not particularly reliable, that connection. It can drain the battery of both your phone and your camera pretty quickly. And yes, there is that USB port where I can offload that 2.7K footage to my iPad. But what I'd really like to see is some kind of quick reader equivalent, maybe where you can put an SD card in to offload your footage and then process it on your mobile device, your phone, and also clearing space on the Go 3 and making a real physical connection, so you're not just using Wi-Fi to connect to the camera and also burning through your mobile data whilst you're doing that. Now this system has got better in recent updates, but it could still be improved. But fundamentally, I'd love to see a more physical connection. Okay, fifth up, that screen can't actually preview all the shots that you take, like a time lapse or a time shift. You can't preview those using the action pod. You actually have to go to the app to do it, which I think is pretty inconvenient, and I hope it can be fixed in a firmware update. I'm still waiting for that 9 months later. Number 6 is all about haptic feedback, or the lack of it in the Go 3 compared with the Go 2. With the Go 2 camera unit by itself, you could enable haptic feedback so that when you switched it on or off, you got strong haptic buzzing feedback, so you could know if it had been triggered for recording or stopping recording. You can't get any haptic feedback on the Go 3 camera unit itself, and that is a fail for me. And even worse is that the only way to know if it's shooting is to look at the front of the camera unit or listen for the beep. Yes, you could use the action pod, but there are times, like if you're out running, when that's either not possible or really inconvenient. And even worse, the beep on the camera unit, you can't change the volume. You can on the action pod, but not on the camera unit on its own. It's either it beeps loudly or not at all. This desperately needs looking at and fixing. Even taking all these points into account, I can say that the more I use the Go 3, the more I love it and the more ways I can see to use it. Even just basically using it as my main vlogging device, which has been revelational over the last couple of months. It really excelled in the vlogs I made in Japan. Take a look. I'll see you there.